make it work.
Hey, so today marks the start, day one of our projects repairing our nav stations, the helm stations here. As you remember, we're going to be redoing the wheels and gauges and instruments and all that, but the first thing we have to do is take the wheels off. And remember the golden rule I told you of any mechanics involving cars, boats, houses, there's always going to be one frigging screw that holds you up from doing your job. Well, as you can see, there is the screw. But luckily, Paul's got some kind of a power extraction device that we're going to try and hammer the shit out of it and see if we can get it, because it's just seized in, so total corrosion. It's a stainless steel bolt in an aluminum housing, and whoever put it back on last time didn't put any anti-seize compounds, so now we have this. So we almost got it off. 4 bolts came off, 1 was just seized, so that's today's start.
Okay.
Is it good?
Not really. Do it again. Ciao. Wow.
Yeah, this is not.
Snapped it.
This one's not the right size.
I think it's just so stripped now. It's really rounded.
Let's see, let me get my kit. Where do we put our Allen key that fit it, Dan?
Yeah, this one's perfect. Couldn't get this side out either?
We didn't try yet, because once I knew this side was bad, I didn't want to mess with those ones, because then we can pull the generator out of the way. Okay.
You can with this?
Oh my God.
Now see this one, yeah, it's just too rounded.
I'm gonna bash on it a bit. Okay, you hold that.
Got it.
Nothing, no movement.
You need the W40?
Well, that's the problem, is there's no place to get the WD-40 into the shaft, into the threads, because it's completely sealed on all sides.
Let me go home and get some really good penetrating blah 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 for loosening the bolts.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, see, this is the problem, though. You can't even get anywhere inside because they fit so snug and so tight, and it's just filled with corrosion inside there now.
Yeah.
So, after another hour or so of this, I realized these bolts are not gonna give up the ghost. So likely my only option is to wait till we get to Panama and find somebody, hopefully, who has an air-powered hammer ratchet that might be able to dislodge them. But meantime, our immediate problem is we can't get the wheels off to take to the upholsterer. So that left us only one choice, and that was to bring the upholsterer to the wheels.
Captain, look at.
This is the same gentleman you might remember, as his family was the ones that just did our cushions downstairs as we're refitting our entire salon also. They did such a beautiful job, well, we hired them to do the cockpit, so he brought all new cockpit cushions, pillows, and the fabric to make our wheels like brand new again. And not only that, but in the fabric to match everything else. How cool is that?
Vive 100?
Hey,
Coca-Cola.
no, que vive 100.
Ok, ¿y tú? ¿Coca-Cola o Vive 100?
Vive 100.
Vive 100, que está fuerte.
En la mañana traje uno grande para venir a coser.
Surprise.
You replant the tomato?
Yeah. It's nice here, no?
Yeah, see how he does. Blending nice with Maya and Bogota.
Yeah, they have new friends.
Hopefully they all get along. And as you can see, they did a freaking spectacular job. They turned out beautifully. And if you look inside here, you can even see that it is practically all like near invisible stitching, like just a great job. So a big thumbs up to Jorge and family. Thanks again, you guys, for a great, beautiful job. We are very happy and recommend you highly. Cruise ship. Generator. Here we go. Of course, as you know, I got to be careful when there's background music like that playing in the background because it's probably copyright. One of our neighbor party boats just on their way back to mooring ball, I guess, the dock, whatever, drop everybody off. But now we also got Miss Astria, and she just lit up her generator again, so that's going to be distracting. Pause. And as you can see, if I turn you around here, they did a magnificent job with the rest of the cockpit also. Very nice, clean, tidy. We got nice neutral colors here, nice colors on the pillows. We got some more of these pillows coming next week with a new crew that's coming down for our trip to Panama. Yes, you guys don't know about that, but it's coming up faster than you think. So we are getting ready. And if you look over here, you can see that the next thing we're going to be doing is taking off these compass pods. So they're going to be sanded down and redone in the same color as the wheels. So that will match. You can also see this piece is getting replaced. We have a brand new one right here, which is beautiful. So that is going to replace the shift control here. And I got a couple of nice pieces of wood. These are left over from a previous project we were working on that are solid hardwood and gonna be perfect for right here. So this is what's gonna replace the plastic panel here now that we have all the Raymarine gauges on as we put in all the new gauges. So things here are happening very fast. And yes, as you can see, we have some other projects going on already. But now, with that little update complete, I will introduce you to the second part of today's video, which of course is Capitan Rick Tells All. Well, a few months ago, I did another interview with a guy some of you might already know, I'm not sure, but his name is Tom Rowland, and he has a very popular podcast called Saltwater Experience. Now this goes back several months ago, actually, just before the hurricanes again. It was amazing. A couple of hurricanes will set you back. Everything goes on the back burner after that. So we didn't get a lot done after that, but Tom posted this interview a while back. Some of you found it, I know. And today, we're gonna play a little preview of it for you here today. Pause. But yeah, Tom posted this podcast a while back, and I know some of you found it, but for those that didn't, we're gonna play a few minutes of it for you here today. And the rest of it you can find on his channel, which I will post a link below in the description. So look for that. All of you that want to see the whole thing where he gets down and dirty and all the history and details of the Captain Rick story that so many of you have asked about for so long. So on that note, it is Sunday, April 25th. So I will wish you guys a happy Sunday. Enjoy your day, and I will see you in the next episode. Ciao, guys. And as soon as I knew everything was rock solid and nobody could back out of anything, I put in notice and quit my job. And that's when people think you've lost your mind. There is a possibility for indefinite sustained travel here. Greetings, everybody. I'm Captain Rick Moore from Sailing Sophisticated Lady, and welcome to the Tom Rowland Podcast. As with anything major in life, things can become very daunting if you look at the big picture. But as soon as you focus on one part of it and fix that first, then go to the next part, and you just work your way down the ladder. It's the same thing with how you get here. You're not just going to sell everything you own one day, but you're going to start that thought process at some point and say, okay, I just want to migrate towards this direction. So what do I need to do in order to get there? Well, people ask me that all the time. The first thing I tell them is stop buying stupid shit.
What's up, everybody? I got a great guest for you today, Captain Rick Moore. If you know him from YouTube, he's got about 130,000 subscribers on YouTube. He's very popular. He takes his boat all over the place, and right now he is in Colombia. One of the things that I like to do on this podcast is to seek out people who are living life on their own terms, people who have found something that they're very passionate about and figured out a way to make a living at it, no matter how unlikely that is. We've done that with people like Jessica Dixie Mills, who is now a professional backpacker, if you can imagine that, but she has done it. She's been able to figure out a way to do it. Rick Moore has been able to figure out a way to live on this sailboat, travel around, and make videos for YouTube, as well as doing some chartering and all kinds of other things along the way. We talked to him about this journey in his life and different places where he pivoted and changed his approach or changed his goals. And you know what? I asked Rick about something that people ask me about all the time is, how do you follow your passion? How do I jump and do what it is that I want to do? I have a dream. I have something that I want to do. How do I do that? How do I do what you're doing? You know, and people ask Rick the same thing. And he offered some of the best advice that I've ever heard on this podcast. And I think you're going to want to hear it. Check out this interview with Captain Rick Moore of the Sailing Sophisticated Lady. Captain Rick Moore of Sailing Sophisticated Lady. How are you today?
Yes, sir. I'm doing well, Tom. And thanks for the invite.
Hey, man. Thank you for taking time out. Are you in Colombia? Is that where you are right now?
We are sitting anchored in San Andres, Colombia. And it's a beautiful little archipelago just in the, it's about 450 miles from Colombian mainland. So we're kind of out in the Western Caribbean Sea, also about 150 miles from Nicaragua. So it's very remote from everything. But we have beautiful weather here. We're below the hurricane zone, so we don't have to worry about big storms or anything like that.
Nice.
And it's sunny all the time. We just went through a bit of a rainy spell, but right now, I've set up the boat to be fully self-sufficient. So it produces all its own energy, water, everything like that. And it's the perfect location for us because we have a lot of sunshine for the solar panels, and we have perfectly clear seawater under the boat for producing drinking water from the ocean water.
Wow. So tell me about your boat. Like I've been watching a lot of your videos, and it seems like you just mentioned, you're completely self-sufficient. You made a big solar transition sometime back. Tell me about the boat.
Well, the boat is a 1996 Jeanneau International, and it was built in France. So, one of the things I really liked about the boat is that it was built before they started building them lighter, faster, cheaper. It's heavier. So of the same size of boat that they make now, this one weighs about 10,000 pounds more, but because the hull is solid fiberglass, there's no coring in it. All the bulkheads are solid. It's a very rock solid boat. The rigging is way oversized for the boat. When I had it surveyed 15 years ago, the guy looked at it and said, "I thought you were buying a charter boat because this thing's built like a tank." I'm like, "Well, I like to hear that. Thank you."
Well, that's what you need, right? Where all have you taken this boat?
Well, me and Sophisticated Lady, I've got about 100,000 sea miles on this boat so far.
Wow.
Most of it has been sailing back and forth to Canada. When I first bought it back in 2005, I moved aboard in May of 2005. Full-time, and I've been on board ever since. Basically, that's when I sold everything and, moved aboard and sailed off into the sunset, so they say.
Wow.
And yeah, back then, I used to take the boat back and forth. Like I bought it in order to get away from the rat race, get out of Canada. I had big stress issues. Doctor told me once, I was ending up in the doctor's office all the time. And he looked at me one time, he says, "Look, you never end up in the doctor's office, and you're here like every couple months now, there's an issue." So he gave me clearance. He said, "You know what, you need to change your life." He says, "You have two choices, stay here and die or go do something else."
Really?
So
wow.
I just said, okay, well, that's my cue. So I sold everything off. And yeah, I dealt with "Oh, you're crazy. You lost your mind. What happened to you?" Well, yeah, I just decided I'd rather live out there than die here. So,
well, and how old a person were you when your doctor's telling you this?
39.
Wow. So you were very stressed. What was making you so stressed? Well, let's just back up a little bit and kind of, would you mind kind of taking us through your story? Because, you know, you watch the videos on YouTube. I've been trying to catch up. I'm a new viewer. I'm fascinated with what you're doing and your story and how you're doing it. But I don't really know any of the backstory. So how did you get so stressed, I guess? Take me back to the beginning.
Well, I mean, I guess the beginning of that type of thing always starts with personal relationships, love, marriage, kids, all the rest of it. And I met my first major girlfriend in high school at 15, and we were basically high school sweethearts. We dated for years. And, you know, but there was times in between where she was off with somebody else, I was off with somebody else. I just did not like life in Canada. I'm not a winter person whatsoever since birth. You know, I used to play in the snow. Okay, cool. I used to ski. Okay, cool. I used to love snowmobiling and all of that. It's just a great way to get stranded far away from home when your engine dies in the cold. So I just got tired of winter sports and not being able to feel my fingers, you know? And even back then, I was always into remote control hobbies, airplanes, helicopters, all that stuff. And you can't do any of that for at least 6 months of the year because your hands freeze. So I don't know, I decided that I wanted something different. And I hopped in my car one time and said to my friend, let's go down and check out Florida, just have a look around and see what it's like. You know, it was January in Canada, like the worst time of the year. And I just wanted to get out of the cold. So we went down and I was like, yeah, this is for me.
Yeah.
I mean, nice breezes, palm trees, girls in bikinis, ocean, blue ocean everywhere. You know, I wasn't even thinking about boats at that point. I just did not like the cold. So at 19 years old, first time I sold everything, put everything I had left in. I had 2 cars. One was a Chevy Cavalier, was my first car, and the other was an old Porsche 914 that was in pristine condition, but that was my favorite. So we loaded everything in the 2 cars. I got my buddy to drive my 1 car. I took the Porsche, took the roof out, and we zipped down to Florida. And I ended up staying down there for a year. I got a condo down there. And
what part of Florida? What part of Florida were you in?
Just west of Fort Lauderdale. It's called Plantation.
Yeah, nice. Know it a little bit.
So I spent down there. And then, of course, I got familiar with the Keys, as you say. And my favorite place in the world was Key Largo and down at Isla Morada Key.
Yeah.
So I used to go down there all the time, hang out at Kokomo on the weekends. We go down and camping at the Key Largo campground for weekends and then buzz down to the Kokomo bar, whatever it's called down there, and just hang out. And, you know, that became my life for a year. But of course, I didn't know anything about green cards or anything. I just kind of moved in and said, yeah, let's just go. I just want to get out of the snow. So I ended up selling off a lot more of my stuff just to keep the bills paid and stay down there as long as I could hold out. And then I ended up turning around and coming back to Canada. But while I was down there is when I spent all my time training in electronics, because at the time we're talking late 80s, I think.
Yeah.
And the big boom down there was big car audio systems. So I got heavy into automotive electronics because that was a passion of mine also, was just, you know, car stereos and stuff. So I did a lot of training, made a lot of contacts, moved back to Canada and started my second business, which was auto acoustics in Kitchener, Ontario. So,
well, that makes a little bit more sense because watching your videos, you seem to be able to fix everything or improvise everything, which, I mean, if you own a boat or live on a boat, I'm sure that is an absolute necessity. Whether you're good at it or not, you're going to have to get good at it. But you seem to have a pretty good talent at it, be able to fix just about anything.
Yeah, it's all about problem solving, just being able to analyze problems, you know, look at something and say, okay, if this is not working, then you break it down to why is it not working? Does it not have power? Is it broken? Is there a bad wire somewhere? What is it? You just have to break it down into individual components. As with anything major in life, things can become very daunting if you look at the big picture. But as soon as you focus on one part of it and fix that first, then go to the next part and you just work your way down the ladder. It's the same thing with how you get here. You're not just going to sell everything you own one day, but you're going to start that thought process at some point and say, okay, I just want to migrate towards this direction. So what do I need to do in order to get there? Well, people ask me that all the time. The first thing I tell them is stop buying stupid shit. You know, most of the things that hold people back most of the things that hold people back are buying things they don't really need and racking them up on credit cards because they have credit available, and everybody loves to live on the limit of their credit. That's a big problem. And that's what holds most people back from, doing something like this. It wasn't really much different for me, except that I was lucky. I never got fully loaded, and I was married to an accountant. So she didn't like debt much, and that was good for me. We only used debt when absolutely necessary. And I kind of used that to get started in this, because with auto acoustics, my first car stereo was car stereo and security. So that's what I was into, is security systems. But it got me into working on boats also, because I had started working on boats when customers would bring them in and say, hey, I got this nice little racer, whatever, ski boat, whatever. I want to put a stereo in it, or I want to put a security system on it. And I started looking at these boats going, wow, this is pretty cool. I wonder what one of these costs. And we ended up getting a small one. I bought with my wife, we bought a Chaparral 21-foot little sport boat, and it needed a ton of work, but I just stripped it down to fiberglass and redid everything from the bottom up. New interior, new paint job. I did it all in my shop. I had a good shop there with an air compressor. And so we sealed it all off one day and painted it up with this fancy paint job. Put a new stereo, full new consoles, new seats, new engine covers, everything, and just made this like mini Don Johnson boat out of this little 21-foot Chaparral.
Nice. That's cool. And then where does that boat take you? Do you want a bigger boat, or do you want a different kind of boat at some point? Or
Well, yeah, we lasted 5 years with that boat, but we used to live inside mainland. We lived in a town called Kitchener in Ontario, and that town is landlocked. There's no water anywhere. It's between all the Great Lakes, but it's a long drive to get to water. And my family, in the meantime, had moved up to Barrie because they were into boats also. And they had a 24-foot boat up in Georgian Bay. So they moved up to Lake Simcoe, which was where Barrie is. That was where it became our hometown for our family. We moved up there, and they're still there. My whole family is still there because they all love it. But that was where I really got interested in the boating aspects of being able to go to remote locations, take it out to places where nobody else can go unless you have a boat, and go camping on shore, because it wasn't a big enough boat to live on or anything like that. But that was always my thing, just being remote places, self-sufficient, on your own, quiet, just you and the mosquitoes,
Yeah. Yeah. And then at what point do you look towards a sailboat instead of a powerboat?
Well, about 5 years in, I started getting bored with the boat because, first of all, it was getting expensive to run. You couldn't take it out for a couple hours and it was $100 in fuel just gone. And that's something I did not like. I just never liked spending that much money on fuel for anything, even though I was considering, well, I'm bored, I must need a faster boat or something like that. One time when we were down in Florida, my wife and I, and we came across this 28-foot, like a Scarab.
Yeah. With
twin 350s in it. And I thought, wow, I remember it was called Moon Dancer or something like that. Had some name with the moon, and I was always fascinated with the moon. I loved the full moon all my life. But we saw this boat on the side of the road, had a look at it and everything, and I thought, maybe I need something like this, But when I got back to Canada that summer, before I was really thinking seriously about doing any upgrades, a friend of mine took me out on a little boat that he had. It was like a 17 or 18-foot day sailboat. Just a little tiny sailboat, nothing but the rudder and the sails and just you and the sails. And he took me out for an afternoon and said, here, try this. Well, after an hour, I was hooked. I was like, wow, no engine, no throttle, just you and the sails. Combine that with the tiller. And it was like a game for me, like a puzzle, trying to figure it out, the mechanics of it and how the sails worked with the wind and everything. I was hooked. Took me about an hour. And then after that, he used to trade me. So I'd give him the powerboat for the day. I'd take the sailboat and I'd just go out and play around with it. And that winter, I decided, okay, it's time to sell the powerboat. And I put it up for sale just to find anybody who would trade any kind of sailboat for that powerboat. And I ended up trading it in New York across the border. I found somebody who had a really, I'd researched, what was going to be a good boat to start with. And there was a few I was looking at, old Columbias and stuff like that. But I came across a Catalina 30. And it was my luck. I just happened to find this boat somewhere. But Catalina was a really good name. It was a really good boat, built boat. It's a great coastal cruiser. It wasn't something I would have considered for offshore, but I wasn't thinking offshore at any stretch. I was just thinking something to learn sailing on. But I ended up trading in the boat, buying the Catalina, brought it back to Canada. Again, just stripped it down. I mean, I put 7 years worth of work into that boat and it was perfect. I still have pictures just before I sold it. It was meticulous, but I did crazy stuff to that boat, you know, like replaced everything, all the windows with my own custom designs. And we cut the keel because the keel was too deep and I couldn't get into our yacht club after like September, which meant for 2 months I couldn't even go sailing.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, that's not happening. So I just found out a place in Toronto called Mars Metals, and they do lead work. They said, yeah, if you take this much off your keel, you bring us that piece, we'll melt it down with 30% more lead, put some bulbs together, you take them back and bolt it to your old keel. Like, sounds easy enough.
And how much draft did that take off?
It took me from, what was it? It was 5'11". No, it was 5'4", and I took it down to 4.5.
Okay.
4.5 would get me safely in and out of the marina all the season so that I could keep sailing until the last possible day when they hauled that boat up.
Nice. And then you didn't have, at this point, you didn't have any kind of ambition for taking it back down to like warmer weather or what? I mean, you were happy just kind of learning how to sail at this point or what?
Oh, no. Yeah, that boat got me into the whole aspect of there is a possibility for indefinite sustained travel here.
Wow. That's got to be a big moment. Like when you kind of realize that, like, I don't know, in my life, as soon as I realized that being a fishing guide was a real job, I didn't know anyone that was a fishing guide. I didn't know anyone that sustained themselves like that until I was around a couple of people. And then I was like, wow, you could just do this. Like, this is a job. And it seems like that's kind of the crossroads you come to there. Like this, you could just live on this boat all the time.
You could just live on the boat, and the boat is much less expensive to live on than anything. It is a mobile house, and it may cost you an investment up front, but you don't have land taxes. You don't have car payments. You don't have car insurance. You don't have all these other associated things, you know, like electricity, hydro, whatever. All these things disappear when you migrate to a boat. Now, the problem is you can't migrate full-time to a boat in Canada. So hence the direction changes.
Yeah.
You know, I just started leaning towards, okay, well, what's it going to take to make this sustainable? Excuse me. And I started taking training for long-term benefits. Like I decided, okay, this is something I would like to do in retirement. So I was always thinking ahead, you know, what am I going to want to do in 20 years from now, 30 years from now? And I thought, well, a great job would be captain of a sailboat down in the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
I figured that would be something I could do in the wintertime. And in the summertime, I'd be a bush pilot flying people up and down into remote locations up in, you know, Muskoka, up in Canada and Ontario.
Were you already a pilot?
No, but I was doing that at the same time. I was taking my captain's license for Marine, and I did that over several years. And at the same time, I was doing my pilot's license for bush pilot. And, you know, I was enjoying the flying to a point. It was a thrill doing something that not many people do or get to do or able to do or anything like that. But to be honest, every time I was up there, I'd be like, okay, I'm bored. You know, you're up there flying around. Unless I was doing tumbles and turns and stall recoveries, that was the kind of stuff I liked.
Yeah.
That was fun. But you can't do that with a bush plane. But that's what I was training and enjoying. But then what happened was the company that I was taking my lessons for, they were prepaid up to almost completion. And we were halfway through the training and the company folded, went bankrupt, all the planes disappeared, everything was gone, and all my money was gone. I was like, I think that's a sign. I wasn't meant to fly.
Yeah.
So I put my focus back into the marine side training, and I continued training just while I was working. And I did about 8 to 10 years of training just in Canada. And I would spend every weekend in the wintertime in my basement. I made a room, maybe about the same size as the salon in this boat now, but with a 10-foot screen. And I used to have my friends over every Sunday, and we'd have sailing day. So we'd rent a bunch of videos from down in Toronto where they had all the cruising videos. You know, that's where I used to have the Shards and all these other, the Dashu offshore and all these videos that existed back then, but there was no computers, no internet, anything like that. So it was all VHS tapes. Mm-hmm. Now we would just rent like 5 or 6 VHS tapes from this bookstore down in Toronto, and they'd send them up every weekend, and we'd have a crash party in my basement and just watch sailing videos. But we were studying stuff constantly, learning and absorbing all this material. And I'd watch the crazy stuff, the Whitbread around the world races, the single solo sailing around the world, and how these guys would do it and how they sustain themselves, how they stay alive and stay sane. And what do they do in storm tactics, and just mentally preparing yourself for all this stuff. And then, I became a storm chaser on Lake Simcoe. That's what everybody called me, the crazy storm chaser, because when it was blowing crazy, I'd be out untying the lines going sailing. They'd be like, what are you doing? I'm going sailing. They're all there putting extra lines, securing the boat so they don't blow off in the storm. And I'm like, no, this is windy, man. It's time to go sailing.
Yeah.
So I gained a bit of a reputation like that. But that just kept me growing in that direction, migrating more and more and more towards this life on the sea, becoming prepared for whatever the worst was that the ocean was going to throw at me. Because I knew that there was one thing is going to challenge you, is going to be the ocean. You can't fight Mother Nature. You just live with it and, mutually coexist, or you die. That's the basics.
Yeah.
So eventually that led to my wanting to upgrade to a little bit bigger boat. I'd already fixed this one up as much as I could possibly fix without going around and starting to redo all the stuff I'd already done again. So we got into a 36-foot boat because my wife is not really a sailor. She likes creature comforts and wanted a little bit bigger. But at the end of the day, she just decided that sailing wasn't for her. She didn't like sailboats, and she didn't like anybody who liked sailboats. And that's where it ended up being in a divorce at some point. We just had the 2 kids. So, I met her at 15. We moved in together at 21. We got married at 30, then had 2 kids and divorced by 36. So that's the story.
Yeah.
But she works in my family business. And at that time, I had migrated out of my business because she didn't like the ups and downs of being in our own business. She wanted me to have a steady paycheck. So I started working with my family business, which is still in Barrie, which is it's a water treatment business called Aquamart. And she's the accountant for that business. And so I ended up, we're divorcing and going through all these battles and all that stuff, and still working together every day. So that was very stressful. And at the end of the day, that was when the stress started building up at that 36-year-old age. And then by 38, 39, it was like over the top. And it's just like, okay, got to leave.
Yeah. So when you decide on this exit plan, you've already upgraded to this next boat? Is it the sophisticated lady that you're in now, or is it another boat?
Oh, that came soon after the doctor's warning.
Right. Yeah. So you upgrade the boat, and then let's talk about that transition. Like you're going to make this exit plan. Like the doctors warned you, and you're going to heed it. And so then what comes next? You go straight for the Caribbean, or what?
Okay, guys, I'm going to cut it there, but that is literally 20 minutes of a 90-minute interview, and it only gets darker and deeper from there. So if you want something chill to watch on your Sunday afternoon, grab yourself a cold beverage and hop on over to Tom's channel. Again, I'll leave the link in the description file. So on that, have a great Sunday, and I'll see you all next time.